Raider Nation, it's time to stand up.
Hey, just one time, I need it. Raiders!
Third down and a long one. Jacobs back in the game. The rookie for the touchdown.
Snap of the gun. He's sacked. He is going down. Max Crosby.
Pass on the slant, complete for a lot of yardage. Hunter Renfrow off to the races.
It's time for the Cover 3 Deep Raiders podcast. Nobody covers the silver and black like these guys do. So whether it's Monster Mash Ken from the East Coast, Dwayne Douglas from the West Coast, or Sean, a.k.a. Oahu Raider from the Pacific, this crew knows the men in black. This is the Cover 3 Deep podcast. They cover 3 deep so you don't have to. Raider Nation, here's your hosts, Sean Oahu Raider, Monster Mash Ken, and Dwayne Douglas. Enjoy the show.
And welcome everybody to another episode of the Cover 3 Deep Raider podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Dwayne Douglas, along with Sean Oahu Raider and Monster Mash Ken. How you guys doing today?
Feeling good, man. I got a nice cup of some whiskey here. It's toffee flavored whiskey, so it's a way to toast off the weekend and getting closer to going back to work. I'm excited.
That's fancy. That's fancy.
The Raiders schedule has been out, and we've been doing a good job of kind of going through the whole league and talking to people who know their teams very well and the Raider opponents. So we have not played the Carolina Panthers in a while. So we have Josh Klein from the Riot Report here on the Cover 3 Deep Raiders podcast to talk about what's going on with the Carolina Panthers, and they look like maybe are they a team that can surprise people? Are they a team that is rebuilding? Matt Rule's there now, so we have Josh Klein here on the Cover 3 Deep Raiders podcast. Josh, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Thanks, guys, so much for having me. I should let you know that I have actually attended a Raiders-Panthers game live in person, starting quarterback for the Raiders that day.
Yeah.
A little quarterback named Jamarcus Russell. You might be familiar with him. I remember him coming out of the tunnel and being like, oh, my God, he looks huge. He's like a defensive end. And then he threw about 8 interceptions. And,
he should have tried. He should have tried DN. He might have been better. He might have been better.
Might have been still a Raider. Who knows?
Yes. And Josh,
I can't say I was impressed.
No, you should. Josh, do you know that story about the whole videotapes and Jamarcus Russell?
No, I would love to hear it.
So the coaching staff was trying to tell Al Davis that, hey, he's not studying, he's not doing anything. So what they did was they said, hey, Jamarcus, can you study these DVDs? And he said, okay, I'll study them, just let us know what you see in those DVDs. Came back the next day. He said, oh, I studied the DVDs. They were, I know what coverage is. I know everything about it. The DVDs were blank, Josh.
Oh, that's great. I love that story.
So, and I think, Josh, I think he was the guy. He was the last guy who was the last guys who got paid the big money out of college too. So I think that kind of ended that whole thing as well. So that was nuts. Hopefully things are going to be better for.
Well, you got Derek Carr out there. He's prized quarterback. Everybody loves Derek Carr, right? I mean, you tell me. How you guys feel about DC out there?
We are mixed in it. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with him. I think I realize this is a big year for him, no question about it. But I'm not as very, very polarizing player, to say the least, in Raider Nation. But I'm fine where we are at quarterback as far as that goes.
Be honest, you would be really hype if the news broke tomorrow that the Raiders had signed Cam Newton and he would be starting at quarterback.
I tell you right now. I'll tell you right now. I said this, man. We'll get into how I kind of like a lot of the players on the Panthers. But if Cam Newton came to the Raiders, man, I'd probably be like, I'm taking the year off, man. I'm gonna just not watch any games. I just can't stand him.
He's so much fun to watch. I'm sure we're going to talk about Cam. You can't talk about the Panthers without talking about Cam. He's so much fun to watch. He's fun to have around. And when he's the quarterback of your team, he's a lot more exciting and beloved. When you're like, you know what, I could forgive. Like, oh, he doesn't bring another outfit to the stadium, guys. That's what he wears. He wears it in, he wears it out.
Cool. Josh, first question I have for you is the transition of ownership from Richardson to Tepper. Can you talk about how that has changed the organization out there in Carolina?
Yeah, well, It's an interesting way to look at it, because you used to think of Jerry Richardson, the way that he used to run the Carolina Panthers was very much a family organization, and very much I hesitate to say, because obviously it's $1 billion organization, but you hesitate to say like almost like a podunk style team, but it very much was like he had the same sponsors for years and years at a time, and they didn't want to upgrade the scoreboard for it was 10 or 15 years before Bank of America Stadium got escalators. He wanted the whole stadium to look like a garden and like somebody's backyard, and he very much did believe in like, this is the Carolina Panthers, and he grew his whole fortune from owning a bunch of Hardee's restaurants. So I think that he was very much a North Carolina born and bred, and was going to and ran his organization like a family organization. And you saw that in some of the deals that he made, and you saw it in some of the transactions and some of the ways that he treated certain players. And then David Tepper comes in 2018. Obviously, there was the huge Richardson scandal that drove him out, and Tepper comes in and starts to run the team like more of a business. And some of the fixes that he made were incredibly easy, right? So in Carolina, he really endeared himself to the fan base by doing a bunch of the easiest stuff possible. Panthers fans had been clamoring for the Panthers logo to be at midfield of Bank of America Stadium for a decade. That's all they wanted. And it had always been the NFL logo, because it was one of 2 stadiums in the NFL that had the NFL logo, because Jerry Richardson he loved the NFL. He felt like they had given this team to Charlotte, and he felt very beholden to it. Tepper comes in and he's like, yeah, what, they want the logo at midfield? Yeah, who cares? Sure. Yeah, do it. And of course, the fan base is like, oh my God, this guy knows what he's doing. This guy is a genius. He has got it. And, he does he's been endearing himself to the fan base, and he was very much in the honeymoon period. And I wrote a column almost a year ago, probably, actually less than that, but essentially that like the honeymoon period was up, because he had these huge decisions to make. I guess it wasn't a year ago. It just feels like it might've been a year ago, because the past 5 months have been the longest of our entire lives. And what he basically did, he had 2 huge decisions that he had to make. And it was what he was going to do with Cam Newton and which coach he was going to hire. And we all saw what he did with Cam Newton. We saw what he did from a coaching perspective. He brought in Matt Rule, made a big splashy hire, brought in the guy from college who everybody wanted and nobody maybe thought that was going to be able to come into the NFL. Somebody that's going to be able to transition and change the culture of the Panthers locker room and change the entire team and build it in Matt Rule's image. And he has really allowed him to do that mostly, except he also retained the previous general manager, Marty Herney, who had built the team at one point and was part of the team that drafted Cam Newton in 2011, drafted Luke Kuechly in 2012, and he was actually fired midway through the 2012-2013 season. I'm blanking exactly which one that was, and then rehired when Jerry Richardson fired Dave Gettleman. He brought back Marty Herney. Another example of how this was a family organization. He knew Herney. He was like, let's bring him back into the family. And Herney has been able to stick around. He's endeared himself with Dave Tepper. Tepper thinks that he is a master scout and can find these diamonds in the rough. And it's been an interesting, I don't want to say conflict, but it has been an interesting look at which timeline this team is on, because Matt Rule and the rest of that entire coaching staff signed a 7-year deal, and Marty Herney's deal expires next year. So do they want to can you afford to have this long runway of we're going to rebuild slowly, we're going to be bad in 2020, or does Marty Herney say to himself, well, we got to be pretty good in 2020 or else I'm going to get fired? So it's been that has driven a lot of the talk, at least in my mind, this offseason of what some of these moves are. What move comes from Matt Rule? What move comes from Marty Herney? And that has been the biggest, in my mind, obviously a huge offseason for the Carolina Panthers, but that's been the underlying topic and the underlying question among every move thus far this year.
The Panthers. You mentioned Matt Rule. Ron Rivera is off to the Redskins now, running that thing with Jack Del Rio. Matt Rule was a guy who, obviously a lot of people wanted. I think the Giants were in on him as well. Why will he be successful in Carolina, you think?
Can I ask a question? Because I know you guys want to find out about the Panthers, and your listeners want to find out about the Panthers. I want to find out about the Raiders. Jack Del Rio is a Raiders guy, right? Like was he Raiders defensive coordinator at one point?
Head coach.
He was the head coach.
Okay, head coach. Great.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
He was a Carolina guy too. He was Carolina's defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And then I think he went to Jacksonville. And did he wear the suit and tie in
He did do that one. No, that was Jacksonville.
One game.
Okay. All right.
That was Jacksonville. Yeah.
That was fun. They should bring that back. Okay, sorry. Apologize.
That's fine.
So Matt Rule. Matt Rule is a builder of programs. He's done it at every single place that he's been. He transformed a Temple program that essentially was non-existent before he came in. I mean, obviously it was there, but he took it from his first year, he was 2-11. Final year, they were competing and going to bowl games. Then he goes to Baylor. He's having to deal with this disaster of a program that has been beaten down by the huge controversy.
Yep.
Again, same thing. That team is 1-11, and when you talk to some of the coaches that were there, because a lot of the coaches that were there at Baylor are now on the Carolina Panthers coaching staff. When you talk to those guys, they said, that first year we didn't have guys on scholarship. Like we were struggling to field a team. And everything that I have heard, and every time that I talk to a former player of Matt Rule or a former coach of Matt Rule or anybody that has been associated with Matt Rule, is that when you talk to him and you hear from him, you want to run through a brick wall. You will do anything for Matt Rule. And that has been the case with all of these teams at Baylor and Temple. Even when he was an assistant coach, going back all the way to Western Carolina, you see these guys that will do anything and want him to be successful, want the team to be successful. And I think the biggest question is whether or not that translates from kids that are 18 to 21 years old in college and guys that are 21 to 30 years old in the NFL that have millions, maybe tens of millions of dollars in the bank, that maybe don't need that kind of motivation to get ready to play on Sunday. They're ready to go. I will be super interested to hear what his relationship is like with these professional football players, because when you talk to the college football players, they all love him. And maybe maybe that will transition over and he will be able to build this culture. But it's one of the things that I like about the hire is that it's a big swing from David Pepper. It's not he didn't go out and go, well, Josh McDaniels is probably the best coach available. You go out and you get a guy that is either going to transition this program, and you hired your next Chuck Noll, your Bill Belichick, your Mike Tomlin, whatever you want to call it, that transitions the Carolina Panthers into this new era. But he bet all of his chips on Matt Rule, because when you're the owner, you buy the restaurant, you want to hire the chef, and this is the chef that he hired. And it'll be really interesting to see how that transition goes. And I do think that there's a long timeline. So I don't think that they have to be successful in 2020 from a wins and loss perspective. I think they have to be successful you want to see them competing and trying hard and growing in terms of player development. I make an analogy all the time on radio here. Makes a lot more sense for Charlotte listeners, but they're like the Hornets of 2020. Nobody thought the Hornets were going to be good, but you went in and you saw them. You saw these guys, Devontae Graham. You saw Malik Monk get better. You saw Miles Bridges get better. They got better. They lost a lot of games, but they were exciting. They were fun to watch. And I think that's kind of the best case scenario for the Carolina Panthers this year. Yeah.
So we talked about management. We talked about from top down owner. You mentioned the GM, and also now we're talking about Matt Rule. Now, I know this running back very well because I'm a USC fan, and he torched us when he was at Stanford. McCaffrey was an absolute beast.
I thought we were talking about Jordan Scarlett. Sorry.
That's true. Are you surprised at the durability that he has shown in the NFL? Because I knew he could play in the league, and I thought he'd be a difficult matchup for anybody to deal with once the ball gets in his hands. But the amount of carries, the amount of touches, are you worried about that at any point with the way McCaffrey plays?
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried about it. The thing about the NFL that one of the coaches last year, I don't remember whether it was Ron or another guy on the staff, said is like, you say that you're worried about all of his touches, but a lot of times he's not touching the ball. He's not even blocking. He's running he's running an out route and nobody's touching him and he's not getting the ball. So he's on the field a lot, obviously, but the kid he's 21, he's 22, he's 23 years old. And I could tell you that he does not want to come off the field. Like he wants to be out there for every single snap. And I was a little bit surprised at the amount of usage that he got. I think it was a little bit of circumstance because they didn't really have anybody else on offense. Well, not that they didn't have anybody else on offense, but he brings so much to that offense that when he's not on the field, you can tell the difference. There was the play that I always try to talk about with opposing teams is McCaffrey ran a screen route to the right side, and you saw all 11 defenders step 3 feet to the right. Fozzie Whitaker on the other side of the field, wide open, touchdown 50 yards. So it's like it's literally the entire defense reacts when Christian McCaffrey's on the field, and I think that has only grown. It's one of those things where the legend of McCaffrey has grown so much over the past year between leaping over guys, flipping into the end zone, thousand, that you have to be you're terrified of him. Not only are you terrified of him on the field, you're terrified of getting like posterized. If you're a defender, if you're a corner and he's got you one-on-one, you don't want that. So that to me has a lot to do with it, the mental aspect of it. But am I surprised that he's been this durable? A little bit, but also you see the way that he takes care of his body. You see the genes that he has. I mean, everybody as far back as his grandpa was a star basketball player at Duke. Like his entire family is athletes. So I'm not surprised that he's been this good, but I take that back. Am I surprised he's the best running back in the NFL in his third year? Yes, of course. But you could see, you knew he was going to be good. It was just a matter of, can he be this good, this fast? And he certainly has been.
Hey, how's it, Josh? Yeah, all the way out here in Hawaii, but believe it or not, there's a lot of connections to the Panthers. Make Kiamotu is from Oahu, so big proponent player. And
Kaloa Pilaris?
Kealoha Pilaris.
Yeah.
I'll save you the pronunciation there, but yeah, Kealoha Pilaris.
I butchered it. Can you edit it me in, like just to maybe make it sound a little bit better?
All good, but it's funny. And then also, like, one of my best friends, who's originally from North Carolina but moved here at a young age, is a huge Panthers fan. So nice. I've been jabbing with him all the time. I watched a lot of Panther games as a Raider fan, so I'm pretty keen to what's happened there. So to me, what I'm looking at first off is how strange it is, about one off season. You're talking Ron Rivera's gone, Greg Olson's gone, Luke Kuechly's gone, Cam Newton's gone, like the biggest players that established that franchise. I know Steve Smith is a little bit before that, Jonathan Stewart and those kind of guys, but you're just looking at it now and I'm like, wow, like just a quick, clean house. To me, it looks like, I think Rule was a great hire. I like what you guys did, but my thing is watching all these people sweep to the side and then sitting there as a Panther fan and being like, well, Cam's still looking for a job. So I just want to know me personally, I think Cam's going to have to wait for a team that has an injury designation or something coming up. But where do you think Cam potentially could land up?
Sure. I think I agree with you. I think that the answer is not as easy as maybe we think it is. It's not necessarily like, well, Jacksonville needs a quarterback, so he's going to go to Jacksonville. I think it's going to be a matter of, I read a really interesting article, don't remember who wrote it, but they were saying that essentially, like, it reminds them of what Jay Cutler went through in 2017, where Jay Cutler was looking for a job. He had just finished he was the starting quarterback in Chicago, right. and he was a free agent. There were no starting jobs available, and he was like, well, I guess I'm just going to retire. And he retired. And then 2 weeks into training camp, Ryan Tannehill tears his ACL, and Miami signs him to be their starting quarterback. To me, that's a little bit of what might happen with Cam Newton. I think he's a victim of circumstance of what has happened this offseason. Obviously, there was the timing of his release. I think that the Panthers, from everything that I had heard, I would imagine Raiders fans that are listening are not as familiar with it as Panthers fans, but the reality is that the Panthers there was a lot of time where the Panthers were going to be sticking with Cam Newton for this final year of his contract. They reached out to Teddy Bridgewater. They found out that he was available for $20 million a year, and they thought to themselves, okay, well, let's sign Teddy Bridgewater for 3 years as opposed to playing with Cam for 1. And that was the transition that happened almost in kind of the blink of an eye. Then they were letting Cam seek a trade, but there was no market for him, obviously, because they had just signed Teddy Bridgewater. So then he's released into the wild, and there are no open spots for him. Not only are there were open starting quarterback spots, but there's also the coronavirus is happening. Yep. So he can't go and get tested and get his shoulder and his foot looked at. He had Liz Frank surgery in December. He's had 2 shoulder surgeries in the past 4 years that, if I'm being honest, I think the shoulder surgery is the main reason why or the shoulder in general is the main reason why he has not been signed anywhere. Because if you can't go there and you can't test and you can't see it yourself, all the Instagram videos, all the videos of him throwing it 60 yards down the field, they don't mean anything because he was doing all that stuff last year and he couldn't throw the ball. So it's one of those things where it's a victim of circumstance. I do think that the way that the cards fell from a draft perspective, they found their own quarterback. So it's just been, if you're Cam Newton, you're looking at it like, I'm 31 years old. I was the MVP 5 years ago. I still have something left in the tank, but I do think that there is a worry for me personally, and I think for a little bit of the Panthers media, that we may be getting into a thing where the NFL has this group think, and if he hasn't been signed by the time that week 1 rolls around and there's no injury, and then it's week 4 and he's still a free agent, like how long do we go before Cam Newton gets signed? So I don't know that he wants to sign week 6 after Dwayne Haskins tears his ACL or after Matt Stafford blows out his kneecap. Like, I don't know that he wants to do that. And if he does, then you have to rework he's a guy that you have to rework your whole offense around. You can't run the Matt Stafford offense with Cam Newton. So all of these questions are, I don't have a good answer. I like, if I was New England, Jacksonville, if I was one of 10 or 12 teams, I would have already signed him. He's better than probably a dozen quarterbacks that are starting today. Yeah. So even if it's just for 1 year, in my mind, Cam Newton is better, but it's also like, you can't bring, it's a whole thing. All these reasons they've been talked about ad nauseum.
And what's crazy about it is, like, he watched Jameis Winston get a job and Geno motherfucking Smith got a job. And
we can curse on this podcast?
Oh, yes, please.
Oh, shit. I didn't know we could curse.
We're Raider fans. You think we're in church right now?
It's like a second language to us, man.
But regardless, I thought that was nuts. I was like, Geno Smith, these people are getting signed. But regardless, so moving on. So you guys.
Joe Flacco's got a broken neck and he just signed a deal. It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Nathan Peterman.
Well, hey, Peterman's got some. Gruden loves him, but that's our own potential problem. So, anyways, Josh, looking at my second question, you guys
the Raiders, you guys keep like 6 quarterbacks a year, right? That was what you did last year. You had 5 quarterbacks to start the season. So
it's Gruden. It's like even the ones that aren't signed, he's telling them to stay close to have a chance. But number 2, so you guys picked 7th overall this year. Brought in Rule, like everything we've already talked about a little bit. Number 7. Isaiah Simmons is right there, and you guys picked Derek Brown. Talk a little bit about that, how you feel, your confidence in that. To me, I was blown away. I was text messaging my friend. I was like, he was like, we got him, Simmons, we got him. And as Raider fans, when we saw Kuechly retire, we're like, that's it. We have no chance of getting Simmons. The Panthers will take him. So you guys take Derek Brown. What do you think? What is your reaction to that? Do you think that was a smart pick? Give me what you got.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel fine telling you guys. There was no chance they were ever going to draft Isaiah Simmons. There were 3 guys on the Carolina Panthers board. They were Derek Brown, C.J. Henderson, and C.D. Lamb. Those were the 3 guys the Carolina Panthers were going to take. If Derek Brown was not there at 7, they were going to try and trade back. And if they couldn't trade back, they were going to draft either Lamb or Henderson and shock it and blow up the internet for 10 minutes until somebody else picked. So
they waited until the Raiders picked.
Yeah, I don't know whether Simmons. I honestly don't know why, but I do know that he was just not on their board, and whether or not they didn't, whether he and that's the other thing that we don't really know is maybe he just doesn't fit into Phil Snow's defense. Like we don't know exactly what kind of defense Phil Snow is going to run. I think it's going to be like more of a 3-3-5 when you look at some of the tape that he's run, but maybe it'll be like a 4-2-5 or like it's just very because he's changed so much. So to me, so here's the other part of the thing. Derek Brown is, in my mind, very much a Marty Herney pick. Marty Herney said, "Hey, the run was bad. Run defense was bad last year. I'm an old school guy. Let's bring in a defensive tackle." Not to mention they play in the NFC South, which is the best passing division in the league.
Right.
They're going up against Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, and Drew Brees 6 times a year, and now they have a guy that can stuff the run. So awesome, great. It was surprising to me that was their guy. So especially when they had talked about how they were going to be more analytics driven, Matt Rule is an old school or a new school guy. Marty Herney is an old school guy. So this is what I'm talking about when I said earlier that there's this kind of push and pull, tug of war between who's making the decisions in Carolina. And while I think that Derek Brown is a very good player, and I think is going to be somebody that can make an impact on defense, it seemed like a very much like well, here we go. Here's this guy. He's not a mistake. He's going to be good. He's going to push the pocket. He's going to have 6 sacks a year. He may have he'll have 80 tackle. He's going to command a double team. It's hard to whiff on that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that Derek Brown is a really good pick. Personally, I would have loved it if they would have done so. I really wanted them to trade down because I think that they have a ton of holes still, and they don't need to win this year. So especially with the news that the Bucs were willing to offer next year's first to come up and draft a tackle, and they turned it down to draft Derek Brown. Like these kind of things are, in my mind, are the kind of thing that you do when you only have 1 year left on your deal and you're the GM. Instead of when you're a head coach and you have 7 years. So that is my feeling about Derek Brown. And I've said it multiple times. It's not Derek Brown, the player. It's the process that goes into picking.
Right. That's good, man. I was thinking the same thing because like I thought trade down would make so much sense for you guys. I mean, like look at the division you're in. It's hot like wildfire right now. Like what's the point of, like great player, but hey, guess what? We can recoup something. And if it's Tampa that's trading with you in your division, how do you say no to that? I mean, they got Tom Brady. They got 1-2 year window. If everything works out,
the Panthers are not going to win the title next year anyway. You
exactly
get to take away a first round pick from your division rival next year.
And then next year you're looking at Tampa. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's wild.
It was when that came out, and I knew that they had talked about trading down. Because, we knew that they were talking about trading down. By the way, I cannot believe the guys took Ruggs with CeeDee Lamb on the board. While we're talking about wide receivers. Right. I don't know who you guys – I'm sure you had a preferred wide receiver, but
we thought it was going to be Lamb. We all thought it was going to be Lamb.
We all thought it was Lamb, but I think like all of us were looking at like between Judy, Lamb, and Ruggs, this is probably the best trio selection you could have. Like it's it's give and take certain things. But my last question I have, and after this I'll have one last thing, like minor question. But so cornerback number 2, you guys are all defensive draft. So who's gonna start opposite Dante Jackson? Is it Troy Pride Jr.? I know I'm a Notre Dame fan. I thought you guys were saved when you draft Jimmy Clausen. Sorry. And or is it Eli Apple, who we tried to sign, screwed up a physical designation, whatever, ended up getting Prince Amukamara for a lot cheaper than what we offered Eli. But who do you see starting there, Troy Pride or Eli Apple?
I honestly don't know. I think Eli Apple is the easy answer. I think they're going to I think they are going to have a bit of a camp battle. I've been saying for the past couple months they needed to sign a veteran cornerback, no matter who it was, whether it was Eli Apple, whether it was Prince Amukamara. This was how long I was saying it for. Prince Amukamara was on the list of guys. Whether it was Darquez Dennard, you don't need. It didn't have to be Logan Ryan, but you can't throw that 4th round pick out there to face off against. It's not even. No offense to you guys, it's not even Henry Ruggs and your other wide receiver.
Arnett. Well, our other wide receiver is.
I wanted to say Michael Crabtree, and I was like, that's not right.
Tyrell Williams.
Exactly. Tyrell Williams. So it's like you can't throw Troy Pride out there. So week 2, they got to go to Tampa Bay. Can't have Troy Pride, a 4th rounder, out there matching up with Chris Godwin on every snap. That's not good for him and his growth and his development. That's not how you get better as a team over the course of 5 or 6 or 7 years. That's how you end up ruining a corner in his first year because he gets burnt so bad for 12 games because he's going up against Godwin and Calvin Ridley and
Mike Evans
and Michael Thomas. The
Calvin Ridley.
Tyreek Hill,
Julio.
Julio, the guys that the Panthers have to face up with this year is insane. And so to throw a 4th rounder out there, it's just bad news. So whether it's Eli Apple, whether it's whoever else they're going to sign, I do think they're going to compete in camp. I think ultimately Apple is going to be the guy that is lining up week 1 against you guys. But
we like that.
Yeah, well, you probably don't hate Dante Jackson either. So the thing is again, the Panthers are going to be very fun on offense. Defense is going to be a bit of a crapshoot. So I think that we haven't even talked about Joe Brady, youngest offensive coordinator in the NFL, turned Joe Burrow into Joe Montana. Turned that LSU passing attack into the best passing attack in college football history, and now is coming to the NFL. And so when you look at the offense, you have Teddy Bridgewater, DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, Curtis Samuel, Ian Thomas, Robbie Anderson. This is an explosive offense. And then you look at the defense and you're like, Brian Burns,
we'll see.
Shaq Thompson.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of I like Jeremy Chin.
Trey Boston. Is he still there?
How about Tahir Whitehead, man? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh. He's good tackler, right? That's what I keep reading.
That's about
12 yards down the field, he'll tackle anybody below their knees.
Yeah. So it's this defense. So what I keep saying is when you go into if you're a Panthers fan, go into this game expecting to lose 45-42. And if you win 49-45, then great. Awesome.
Okay. So my last question is short, but because we're Oakland Raider fans, and of course we LA and some of us all, and now we're Las Vegas, but in Oakland, if you've ever been there for the experience, the tailgating experience is just epic. And it's just something that will never be replaced. We're going to lose it. We're going to join. We're going to have a world-class stadium experience. We're going to be in Vegas, a gambling town. So much cool stuff for the fandom, but we're throwing away some of the things that are nostalgic for us. So for you in Carolina, we grill, we barbecue. I'd never been much to the south outside of New Orleans, but so Carolina, walk me through a barbecue. I've heard there's different genres of barbecue in Carolina. There's different Lexington and this and the coleslaw with the vinegar, that or what?
I thought you said this was going to be a short question.
But try to keep it short. But relatively, what is your ideal lineup? What is your ideal spread if you're grilling before a Panther game? Because some of us might be there.
A lot of people, barbecue is a verb, right? I'm going to go. We're going to barbecue. In North Carolina, that's not the way it is. North Carolina is a noun. Okay, barbecue is a style of food that you can have. Okay, so you can have pulled pork. You can have in other places it's going to be some brisket, but for the most part, we're all about pulled pork here in Carolina. So pulled pork, you have Eastern and you have Western style. Some of it is going to have vinegar. Some of it is going to be more of a mustard-based sauce, which is going to be South Carolina. That's what we call Carolina Gold sauce. Okay, that's my personal favorite, and I know that if a Panthers fan is listening, or somebody from North Carolina, or your buddy out there in Hawaii is probably going to be pissed at me, because a lot of people, they get mad when you say Carolina Gold is your favorite. But for me, that's where it's at. It's mustard-based sauce, vinegar-based sauce, coleslaw. So if we're going to be tailgating, We're going to have some pulled pork barbecue. We're going to have multiple different kinds of sauce, okay? We're going to have a vinegar-based sauce. We're going to have a mustard-based sauce. We're going to have a tomato-based sauce. We're going to have a spicy. I got to have a hot sauce out there. Maybe a Texas Pete, which is made in North Carolina, even though it's called Texas Pete.
Wow, never knew that.
We got to have coleslaw. And have some potato salad out there. We're going to have we'll put some smoked sausage out there. A lot of people call it kielbasa. We got a smoked sausage. We have this spectacular fast food restaurant. It's called Bojangles. Bojangles. That's where it's at. So Bojangles chicken and biscuits. We got biscuits. We got fried chicken. You got the dirty rice. Like, I mean, this is I'm getting hungry. I may have to go, guys.
So I won't overdo it. I will pass it on to Ken. But funny, my friend, he always used to show me that commercial on YouTube. It was Jake Delhomme and Steve Smith, Bojangles commercial. They're in the what's that ride?
The Dukes of Hazzard car.
Dukes of Hazzard car.
General Lee, yeah.
Yeah.
I used to have when he gives you the dirty rice blitz.
Too funny.
On them like fixins, something like that. That's kind of the
Right on, man. Well, I'm gonna pass you on to Monster Mash Ken. Thanks, Josh.
Absolutely, brother.
Hey, Josh, man. Hey, first of all, thanks so much for hanging out with us. So, yeah, one of my best friends, he was up in New York City. I didn't know who he was, but he was visiting New York City from North Carolina, and he had a Raider jersey on. So I know a lot about North Carolina. Went down there. I love North Carolina. That was one of the questions I was going to ask us about the food. So talking about the Panthers, so many great players. You know, you guys have a lot of you had really good drafts. You have players that are the Panthers, like Steve Smith, Tommy Davis, Julius Peppers, D'Angelo Williams.
Sure.
You tell me about some of your favorite players and some of your favorite memories as visiting some of these or watching some of these games.
Oh boy. Okay. So I actually grew up in Charlotte. We moved here when I was 12 years old. And the year after we moved here, the team was announced they were coming to Carolina. Don't do the math. And so my dad and we would go to almost every game. They played their first year in Clemson, which is about an hour and a half south of here. So when you talk about some of my favorite players throughout the history of the team, it goes in eras, right? So the first era of the team got guys like Kevin Green, Lamar Lathan, Salt and Pepper on the outside, Thunder and Lightning, like that. Those are my guys. I loved. I was a big Steve Berline guy, huge Steve Berline guy. One of my favorite Panthers jerseys I've ever owned was a Steve Berline jersey. Chad Cota was a safety who made an interception in the end zone on the last play of the game in 1996 to send the team to the playoffs. One of my favorite players. It hit me at the right time. You know, when you're like 12, 13 years old, You're at the game with your dad and it's like a big play. That was my guy. So Chad Cota, my favorite Panther of all time. Get into the next era. Jake Delhomme. I was a big Jake guy. He had the accent. He's so he just came out of nowhere, and his story is just insane. The University of Louisiana Lafayette came on as wasn't really recruited, earned the starting job there, signed as a UDFA with the Saints because he didn't want to move out of Louisiana. Then he came to Carolina, came in at halftime, and brought them and they had that magical 2003 season. And he was just really fun to be around, and just like mentioned was like the Bojangles commercial. Like he was the quintessential like Carolina quarterback. Like he had the accent, and he was all like, there's it was like he would get fired up, and you could hear him in the press conference. Like you couldn't understand him after like 3 or 4 sentences once he started getting excited. Wesley Walls was a big guy back then, and then Julius Peppers was when I went to Carolina, the University of North Carolina. Peppers, my favorite North Carolina basketball player of all time. I was there when I was a freshman. He was still there playing basketball and football. And then he went to the Panthers, and it was just kind of like kismet. And so Peppers, and then obviously, I mean, it sounds so dumb, but like Cam Newton, like that guy is there has been a lot of talk about like the Mount Rushmore of Carolina Panthers players. And to me, it's Cam Newton, Steve Smith, Luke Kuechly, Julius Peppers, and there's nobody else that's even really close. I guess you could give it to Thomas Davis. You could put him up there if you want. Jordan Gross, Wesley Walls, like these other guys that are they're really good. But those four are like those are NFL. Those are guys that made an impact in the NFL, and they did in a Carolina Panthers uniform. And that to me is what you have to do in the first couple decades of a team to introduce them to the rest of the league. And Cam Newton took the Carolina Panthers from being a team in the NFL to being a worldwide brand. And that will never go away. And that is kind of his legacy here in Carolina, is elevating the team.
Well, it's a brilliant answer, and it's definitely what I wanted to hear. You went and you took it a step further as far as putting a Mount Rushmore, because there's so many great players. My little brother is a huge Julius Peppers fan, and you go back and watch, this guy was so dominant. I think he was just so – I don't want to say he's underrated, but he kind of was, you know?
A little, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even look at the offensive line. Yeah, Khalil was a really good lineman.
Ryan Khalil, not Matt Khalil. We don't want to talk about Matt Khalil.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, definitely some amazing players. And then when you look at McCaffrey, you know, McCaffrey is – people always ask me if you could take one player from another team, put him on the Raiders 100%. I wanted McCaffrey 100%. I'm so happy to see what he's doing. So I got to ask you, you know, you live in the South. Are you a wrestling fan?
Yes and no.
Any run-ins with Ric Flair, Chapel Hill down there?
I would say I dabble. So I had a lot of run-ins with Ric Flair when I was in high school. He used to go to the grocery store, and like every now and then you'd be at the grocery store, you'd be in like the deli aisle, and you hear from like the other side of the grocery, you hear like, woo! And you'd be like, oh man, what's going on? And then you would hear it a couple more times, and you would kind of run over there. And then sure enough, there are people just wooing at Ric Flair, who's like picking out just cans of soup and like noodles. He's just a regular dude. Like he's
oh god,
he's awesome. So back in the day when I was in high school, middle school, I was a huge wrestling guy. Goldberg, my favorite wrestler of all time. And so these past like 10 years, this past decade or so, I've been trying to like get a little bit back into it. I feel like
it's hard.
I feel like it's hard. I just don't know a lot of the guys, and also like it's terrible so much of the time. I mean, if you're a real wrestling fan, you know, you have to admit it's terrible for most of the time. Sometimes awesome, but then sometimes you're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
did he just throw somebody off the side of a building? Like, that's the kind of stuff that happens. So I'll watch it every now and then. My wife will just absolutely crush me when I do. So that's really the main problem.
No, I hear you. I'm in the same boat. Before I let you go and I pass you back over to Dwayne to wrap it up, just real quick, you don't have to do a whole report on it, but we spoke a lot about the offseason. We spoke about some of the players coming in. You kind of touched a little bit about, you said that the Panthers aren't winning the Super Bowl this year or anything like that. It's a really realistic outlook. I like that a lot. I just wanted you to give me a grade on the overall offseason that the Panthers had.
Oh boy, that's a tough one. I apologize. I'm not great at limiting my answers.
Do your thing, man.
No. The thing is that it's hard to tell. Like they're basically like they're in such a transition period. I would give it like, I guess C plus, maybe B minus. Like it's just tough because they literally they lost three legends of the franchise within the course of 2 months. One of them surprisingly. The other two kind of a little bit more expected. I mean, we expected Greg Olsen and Cam Newton to be gone at some point. Like during the season, we were trying to prep the fans for it because we saw it coming. The Kuechly retirement kind of came out of nowhere, even for the team. Like I was told that he just showed up one day and was like, "Hey guys, I'm retiring. Do you want me to film something?" And they were like, "What?" Like it was a Tuesday, and they were just like, "Yeah, man, I guess." So it's one of those things where when you have that much turnover, what are you going to do? Now, personally, I think they would have been better not emptying the roster a little bit better. Like I think they could have gone into this season with Will Grier as their starting quarterback, or drafting a guy at the 4th round. Because if the goal is if you're not going to win the Super Bowl this year, you need to get the number 1 pick. Like you should have one of two goals if you're an NFL team, and if you're not going to try and win the Super Bowl, you should be trying to get the number 1 pick. Like, and so especially if you're on this end of the rebuild, which the Carolina Panthers are, that I would have liked to see them kind of empty it out a little bit more. But at the same time, they're in a tough spot, especially with coronavirus limiting what they can do. I think there are things to be excited about from a draft perspective. It's a super young team. They only have 4 guys on the roster that are over 30 years old. One of them is kicker. One of them is a long snapper. So this is a super young team. So maybe I'll go B-. I'll bump it up to B-.
So Josh, real quick, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I appreciate it. I did some background on you. Sounds like an FBI agent, but I looked in, the riot and all that. You guys really got a good fan base, just like the Raider Nation. It's awesome. And listen, you mentioned Clemson. Obviously, the Raiders are picking players right out of Clemson. So if you ever want to jump to the real silver and black, we'll accept you, buddy. I'll throw you right over to Dwayne. Thanks a lot, man. Take care.
Oh man, come on! You guys are already going to invade Bank of America Stadium. However many tickets they sell,
that is true.
3/4 of them will be. Oh yeah, well come hang out. The Roaring Riot's got a big tailgate. We'll introduce you to what Bojangles is. It'll be great.
I'll hit you up, man.
So, Josh, we got to know you a lot and got to know about the Panthers. What question? Give us a couple questions for the Raider Nation here. We're going into Carolina, that first game. What are your thoughts from a distance about the Raiders, real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. I do have I have a bunch of them.
Yeah, I'm sure. You look like
no, the big one. The big one.
How many felonies do you guys have?
Yeah, I like to ask. I always like to ask fans of another team, what's your goal for this year? Do you think they're competing for a Super Bowl?
I think I don't think they're competing for a Super Bowl, but I see this is Gruden from year 1, 4 wins, 7 wins last year. I think that for this to be a good season, they have to reverse last year's record at the very least and be 9-7. If they're able to upset some of the big teams in your division, like the Bucks, like the Saints, if they're able to win one of those games, and they can flip that to 10-6. But I do feel like this is a team with the draft picks they've had over the last couple of years. I mean, Josh Jacobs has been a beast. They get Jonathan Abram back for next year. Cleveland Farrell, just on CBS Sports, just had I think he gained 15 pounds of muscle. He looks like a different player. A more mature Max Crosby, who had 10 sacks, rookie year. Max Crosby. I mean, the wingspan is great. And I think for the first time, I almost had a heart attack. The first time when I saw the Raiders actually address the linebacker position, I almost had a heart attack. Corey Littleton, Nick Wachowski. So I think they're trending in the right direction. They actually spent. I was looking at a story where they had the salary cap being spent, and the salary cap on defense has not been spent at all. They actually did it this year, so I think they had to reverse that record. And with the extra playoff team, I think they should be. They have to be a playoff team this year.
Yeah. What was your reaction after Hard Knocks? Because did you really feel you watched that Hard Knocks season and you're like, I mean, from a distance, I was like, man, Gruden doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's out there, he's keeping quarterbacks. It's just, he looked like a crazy person. And then obviously, it all kind of there was a method to the madness a little bit. But gut reaction when Hard Knocks was over, where you're like, man, we made a mistake. This guy doesn't have it. This is the Frank Caliendo version.
No, I think, I was really into Hard Knocks. I think, getting your team on there and get to see what goes on behind the scenes and that the draft class that they had, you got 3 first-round picks coming in, and you got to see the star of the show, which was Abram. He was such a character. So I loved that reaction. I hated the Antonio Brown stuff. I was one of those people that was saying, man, this is a really good signing. He's crazy, but he's going to make it work. Gruden's going to get it together. So obviously, you look at that was the other portion of this, of being a star of the show was Antonio Brown. And then you look at John Gruden. Now, John Gruden is a character in himself. He is definitely made for TV. I guarantee that's probably why they had him on the second season or whatever, or his second stint with the Raiders. But yeah, I think I was fine with it. I think Gruden is a mastermind as far as offensive plays for the most part. It's just that maybe it's outdated, maybe it's not. Sometimes he gets away with some crazy play call that works. So I was happy to see what was going on behind it. I don't think he's not the man for the job, but I do believe he's more on the hot seat than Derek Carr is. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Derek. I would agree just from a distance. I think that Derek Carr. I would rather keep Gruden and move on from Carr if I was a Raiders fan. I would be. I mean, they're lots of quarterbacks out there. Lots of them. I mean, there are too many quarterbacks.
Oh, Sean's smiling. He's ready to get on this one. Sean.
Are you anti-Derek Carr?
Sean, I think you're on mute.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse
Okay.
me.
Stay on
Yeah.
mute.
No,
Stay
he's
on
ready.
mute. I don't want to hear it.
I would say I am, not to a point to where I don't understand what he's good at. I know what Carr is good at. He's a phenomenal player in shorts and shells. He can throw the ball anything in the offseason. He's very accurate. He's extremely intelligent. He can pick up any offense. That being said, when there's a live pass rush coming and there's all the intricacies of what happens within a game, I feel like he gets lost in that, and I feel like he becomes a smaller person and a smaller position of what he is. And that, I don't know. I've seen enough of it. I've been on his side. I've championed for him before. But at this point, I think the team has a lot around him that will kind of help him, work with his circumstances, and he'll be able to survive this, I believe. There's a good thought of mine that thinks he will potentially play out this contract. Gruden hasn't drafted a quarterback in 3 years. He's had 2 years with Mayock. They haven't drafted a single quarterback, and Derek Carr's a guy. Dwayne's harped on that very hard in our show, and it makes a lot of sense, right? Like that they really are believing in him. I believe there's a little bit of toxicity to that. I do think this team will break 500 this season. Don't think Carr brings us to the promised land because of the type of I just see an apprehensive person. You guys have Cam Newton. You've seen, like, when you need a tough play in a tough situation, you've seen a guy that isn't as polished as a passer as Derek Carr, but can create unorthodox plays and create a touchdown in the red zone and break a tackle and throw it to Greg Olsen in the corner. We don't really have that with Derek. He's the finesse passer. He's the timing passer, the rhythm passer, and he's very good at that. I will not take that away from him, but I don't think he's the guy that's like, when the going gets tough, he creates and makes it happen, which I saw with Rich Gannon growing up. I don't think he's that way, but that's all. It's a toxic situation.
So we can all go on Derek a little bit, but you want to go, or I can go.
No, I'm good.
I'm good. Okay. I'm really, for me, like I look at the people, Raider fans, like, we talk about Rich Gannon a lot, and I understand why. But if you look at the trail of quarterbacks, the trail of bodies, if you will, from Rich Gannon to Derek Carr, there's a whole lot of guys who just couldn't play football. And I think that the most traumatic year for him was the year where they were a top offense and their defense was terrible, even though they had Khalil Mack. Jack Del Rio got rid of the offensive coordinator, changed the offense for a guy who is not even, what's his name? Todd Downing is not even calling plays anywhere right now anymore. So I thought that was something that really hurt him. I think there's a little bit of that Alex Smith syndrome where you're changing offenses, changing things around him. This is the best position he's going to ever be in. Yep. He has a top offensive line. He has Josh Jacobs. Josh, he could play. Uh-huh. Football. Darren Waller, great find off of the Ravens practice squad. Tyrell Williams is not a great player, a great wide receiver, but he is a number 2, number 3 NFL receiver. You have the speed of Ruggs, which you have to react to on the field, no matter rookie or not. You have to react to that. And I think the guy from South Carolina is going to be he's my favorite draft pick of all. Edwards. Edwards is going to be a beast receiver too as well. So the weapons are there. I'm not saying that they're going to the Super Bowl this year, but they should be. I mean, they have to be contending. They were contending for the playoffs in Week 17 last year. They should be doing it this year.
You guys are going to be pleasantly surprised with Brian Edwards. That was a guy that our draft guru at the Riot
I love
Report
him.
Loved him. He literally texted me, "Fuck," with like 8 U's.
Back to back, right? Back to back.
He was so excited that he thought that there was a chance the Panthers might go out and get him, but he's going to be really good.
What do you think about Bowden Jr.?
To be honest with you, I'm not. I would love to say that I have a bunch of stuff to say, but I'm not super familiar with him. But
okay,
I think that anytime that you have a guy that's like that has that that kind of that he could play all over the field a little bit. He's very versatile. I think that has some some quality. In today's NFL, that has you can transition, and when you can contribute in multiple areas and on multiple spots and out of multiple, you don't have to line up in the slot or at the X and be a guy that can make a play. I think that makes a huge difference.
All right, guys, listen, Josh, thank you for joining us here on the Cover 3 Deep Raiders podcast. Oh, yeah, nothing else? Yeah, you got more? You got more? Go ahead. Go.
Two more. Well, what do you think about the Roomba Stadium? Good.
Yeah. Well, considering that the old stadium, you could use the bathroom and you could smell it on the 50-yard line. I mean, it was much better.
It's true. That is nice. That's fair.
Yeah.
Also, like you guys are in Hawaii, Jersey, like you're all over the place. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't even matter that the team is moving 3 times or twice in the past decade, right? Like that doesn't make a difference.
No, no.
Yeah, for me, I feel that's strange. Like within our fan base, there's a lot of like, people call you like a satellite fan if you're not like part of the Oakland fan base, or maybe you grew up in LA or what it is. But it's strange to me because, yeah, we are like, you go to London and we're a 4 or 5 win team and there's 60,000 Raider fans there. We go to me it doesn't matter. I get the origin of the passionate fan base in Oakland that kind of spurned by it, but to me it's like I'm like, we needed a world-class stadium. We needed something. Players didn't want to sign with us, not only because we were a terrible franchise, but because we had terrible facilities. These kids they had better workout rooms in college. They had better lockers in college. And then I'm in the NFL now, and I'm making this money, and you're telling me there's a plumbing issue, and I'm playing in a baseball stadium with a dirt on the ground, and it's October. So to me, yeah, there's a lot of complications to it. But I mean, you're talking about Jerry's World and all these other stadiums popping up, but the Raiders are in a good situation. They actually have 2 world-class stadiums this season, just to clarify. They have one in Las Vegas and one in Los Angeles. So every year when we play the Chargers, that's also our home stadium, as it was in San Diego. So I think we did pretty well.
You have like 13 home games a year, basically. Like honestly, it's going to be loud. It's going to be a lot of silver and black in Carolina too, because the Panthers fans are upset with Dave Tepper and Marty Herney and the way they treated Cam Newton and flipped over the whole roster. So I would be remiss if I did not tell you to be prepared for a lot of Raiders fans cheering for Josh Jacobs to run for 4 yards in a cloud of dust.
Good enough for me.
What was your next one? You had another question?
I think that was it. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. Honestly, like the Raiders fan base is so impressive. So the Riot Report, we're a credentialed media site that stems from the Roaring Riot, which is the Panthers fan club and the Panthers fan group. And one of the things that we always try to do is, try to extend the fan base aside from just Charlotte. So we have Roaring Riot members that are in all 50 states and 10 countries around the world, and just try to expand the fan base. And the original reason that the Roaring Riot became an organization and became a thing was to keep fan bases like the Raiders and the Packers and the Seahawks and the Jets from coming into Bank of America Stadium and turning those games into home games. And and over the past 10 years, what you look at what Cam Newton was able to do and Luke Kuechly and this Panthers team was turn Charlotte into a Panther city and North Carolina into a Panther state and spread the fandom all around the world. And so I'm really hopeful that this kind of transition does not stop all the progress that they made and helps the Panthers maybe not get all the way to Raiders level, because I mean that logo and the silver and black, like, it's not going anywhere. But just to try and grow that Panthers fandom around the world, I'm hopeful that we can get there someday.
Awesome.
Listen, man. Listen, I used to work at ESPN, and the guys used to say, the producers used to say, a great interview is one that can go on forever. So I really think we could have talked to you for like days here on our podcast, man. Good job.
I'm out of beer anyway, so I got to go.
Yeah, the beer. All right, Josh, take care, man.
Thanks, guys.
No problem.
Thanks, Josh.
Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the Cover 3 Deep podcast, the East Coast Nation podcast, the Put on Waivers, and the Blackout podcast. Please hit us up at Cover 3 Deep on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook.